Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick. This is MSFS Flight Plans and my intention is to do everything I possibly can to save the world through simming as we try to eliminate the sense that our fellow humans seem like strangers no matter where on the planet they may call home. Today we are up, and I mean way up in the Shetland Islands, the northernmost part of the UK, and this has always been one of my favorite places to fly over when I need a little break from a rough day. Not a lot to see as far as landmarks go, but something about the landscape out here is just so relaxing to me. I was able to dig up quite a few historical tidbits for us as we cruise along, but we're not going to have a ton of time to talk about them because this plane is pretty quick. And if you haven't seen it already, this is the Eviation Alice by a developer called LiveToAir. This is the world's first all-electric commuter aircraft, and as you're going to see, it is definitely a different kind of flying experience here in the sim. So let's go ahead and get her started up, and then we'll go. It has an EFB. There's plenty of reviews out there about it, so I'm not going to go through all the details. As far as how it looks, this is a $20 plane, and I think it's worth the $20 to get an EFB with it. And most of the interior looks pretty good as far as the dash area here. Once you get off to the sides, a little bit rough, but it's about what you'd expect for that's a little rough down there. The seats look pretty good. You can climb in the back. I got a camera in one of the back windows for us. But I think it looks pretty good. I think it's worth the $20 for sure. And it's so different from everything else that I kind of like that too. All right, to start it up, all we really have to do is turn on the battery. So let's just lean over and do that. And then we turn on these batteries back here. And then turn on the generators. And that's it. Okay, let's let the GPS start warming up and take a quick look at the satellite map. So there's the UK, here's Scotland up here, and then here is the Shetland Islands way, way up here to the north. And I just know there's a town called Twat. How did I miss that before? Well, we're going to fly near that, I think. All right, so we're leaving from the northernmost airport in the whole place, which is somewhere around here. We're going to come across this way, check out these islands up here at the very top, Muckle Flugga Lighthouse. We'll check that out. And then cruise down here, check out St. Olaf's Kirk, which is how they say church up here. Check out one of the two castles, Muness Castle over there. And then come down around this way, and then cruise down here to check out a huge oil terminal they got out here, which looks pretty cool. Swing down around this way, and then I'm kind of just guessing here. We're really zigzagging back and forth across that. And then I think we're going to come over here, and then back down this way. Yep, because we're going to come around Scalawa down here. And then up this way, come around Bressa to check out their lighthouse. And yes, I'm saying these differently than they look. I did look at how to pronounce a lot of these words. Their dialect is pretty strange up here, so I'm probably going to get some of them wrong, but it's only because I couldn't find the pronunciations for them. I'm going to give it my very best. And then we're going to land down here at Sumbra Airport on the very, very southern end of it, which is the biggest airport and the main airport out here for the Shetland Islands. All right, so that's that. Okay, a couple of other things I want to just tell you real quick. Let's check our baro. We got our landing lights on. Let's turn those off and get our taxi lights on. Whoops, that was a beacon. There we go. Whoop, there we go. Get our speed bugs on real quick. And get back here. Okay, so as far as add-ons, I have the ORBX Great Britain North Landmarks Pack and the ORBX British Isles Mesh Pack. Both of those were payware. And the Landmarks Pack added a few little places along the way, but they're kind of small, and we're going to be cruising at 3,000 feet, so it's going to be tough to see them. So if you didn't want to pay for that, probably wouldn't be a huge deal. I didn't notice a massive difference with the mesh pack. The terrain out here is going to be kind of hit or miss. Along the coast, we got a lot of cliffs. Some will look good. Some will look pretty bad. I didn't notice a huge difference when I put the terrain mesh. In fact, I didn't really notice any difference when I put the terrain mesh in. So if you don't want to pay for that, don't worry about it. But one I would put in is a freeware pack called the Shetlands Airports Upgrade. And that added a lot of stuff on the ground, kind of cleaned up the airports. So that was pretty cool. I would definitely put that one in. All of those will be linked in the video description as always, along with this exact flight plan if you want to take it just like we are. All right, so one of the really weird things about this, perhaps the most weird thing about it, is there's really no sound other than the propellers spinning through the air once you get them kind of spooled up. So let's give it one notch of flaps. Now we can turn our taxi lights on. There we go. All right, I can figure this out. I've done it before. Okay, parking brake off. Listen how quiet that is. So this departure airport here is called Unst, or Balta Sound Airport, and has been all but closed since 1996 except for emergency use. And it also happens to be the northernmost airport in the UK. They first opened this place in 1968, and I couldn't get much information about why they built it, but it sounds like they were using it for the oil rig companies that were drilling offshore up here. They even used to have a terminal and a control tower, but I think they pulled that down. And I don't see one here in the sim either. Just a little outbuilding. So I think all this stuff we see on the ground here was included with that freeware add-on pack, because I don't remember seeing most of this. I mean, I think the houses were out there. But I think that construction stuff was all from the add-on pack. Okay, this runway is like 2,000 feet, and we are going to need every single inch of it. This is not the live weather. If you've ever flown in the Shetlands before, and I'm sure you probably have, it's always very windy, so I did turn the wind back up just to make that a little bit more lifelike. But the clouds are always pretty low out here. And it was kind of broken like this. It looked about like this, but the ceiling was like 2,000 feet. We're going to be flying at 3,000, so we were just cutting through too many clouds and missing the few things we would be able to see on the ground in some spots, so I just raised those up to about 4,000 feet. All right, I'm going to see if I can get all the way to the very end here and then just swing this thing around because we are, again, going to need all of this. I just gave it some throttle. That was it. That was the sound. So I turned the volume of the sim up a little bit just so we can hear something, but the only problem with that is, as we're coming in for our approach, our altitude warnings are going to like blow my eardrums out because it's going to sound so loud, but that's okay. Okay, now we can turn the taxi light off, landing light on, and let's see if we can get the NavCom, get our transponder set to altitude mode. Cool, cool. Looking good. I don't even know how to get back to our main page. There it is. Okay, did we get our speed bugs on? Yes, we did. All right, so the other thing that you have to do here is it has a couple of different power settings, one for taxi, one for range once we get up in the air, and then one for power. And if you're wondering how much battery you've got left, it's that number right there. So we're at 100% right now. It'll tell us our range underneath that. And I can't read what that says, but these are the two things you want to pay close attention to. We'll still have like 80% power left, I think, when we get back. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this plane once we get going. Okay, so now we need to set this to power. And our cruising altitude will be 3,000 feet, so let's go ahead and set that. And the problem I'm having with this is that I can't get my external controls to work with this plane, so that's fine. We'll just use the internal controls. A rare little treat. Okay, check the barrel one more time. Our flaps are good to go. And I feel like we're ready. And if you guys are ready, let's do it. I'm going to go ahead and spool them all the way up and then launch this thing. Our rotate speed is going to be 100 knots, and we do have a nice headwind. Listen how quiet that is. Right now is when I would usually start yelling because the engines would be so loud. Alright, we're going to do a little carrier hop at the end. Alright, we had a little bit more room that time. We're still going to need to hop a little bit. Listen how quiet that is. Maybe I'll just whisper the whole flight. Okay, gears up. And flaps up. And autopilot on. Nav mode. Vertical speed. And we'll come up at 1,500 feet a minute. There we go. Okay, so again, some of these shorelines are going to look pretty good. Some are going to look pretty bad. This one's just kind of in between right here. And we're going to get a lot of popping too. But it's worth it for me to fly up here. I don't know what it is about this area, but it's just very, very nice. Something about this landscape looks very chill and bucolic. I do have most of the graphics settings turned up pretty high. We're going to have probably 1 or 2 hard freezes. No matter what I did with my rolling cache or any of that, I was still getting them about halfway through the flight, so we'll see how that goes. And I just need to remember once we get up to our cruising altitude to set that back down to range, even though we probably don't need to. It doesn't seem to make a difference on our airspeed when I change that, by the way. But since we're climbing, I'm going to leave it on power for now. That inlet over there is called Harold's Week, 2 words. And that tiny, tiny little town at the other end of it is called Harold's Week, which is 1 word, which is right next to the even smaller town of Clibbersweek. And that place appears to just have 1 house in it, versus at least 11 houses that I found in Harold's Week. So I think this is Clibbers over here, and then there's Harold's Week over there. And Week, by the way, in Old Norse means bay. Its namesake is the Viking king Harald Fairhair, Harold's Week is, whose purported burial spot is near Haugesund, Norway, which we flew over in our Not Just Another Fjord flight a few months ago. But that is supposedly the first spot the Vikings landed when they arrived to settle the Shetland Islands around 850 AD. They were doing a lot of raiding before that. Okay, right over here is an interesting little landmark. That is a place that's called the Remote Radar Head Saxa Vord, and they built that just prior to World War II and have upgraded it several times since then, closing it for a short time in 2005, and then they opened it again in 2019 to keep an eye on Russian military activity, and today it's completely automated. The only people that come out here are maintenance crews occasionally. And it's also the location of the highest unofficial wind speed ever recorded for Great Britain, logging a gust of 197 miles per hour in 1992 just prior to the measuring device being blown away. This rocky island up ahead is called Muckle Flugga, and I'm not sure where Muckle comes from, but Flugga is a derivation of Fluggi, which means cliff island in Old Norse. And that lighthouse that's over there on the other side of it, which is in the wrong spot. And in fact, that island doesn't really look all that much like it does in real life, but I can tell they modded it up, so I appreciate the effort. But that lighthouse has been there since 1858, and it was built by the brothers Thomas and David Stevenson, the former having a son of some literary renown. You may have even heard of him. He named the lad Robert Louis Stevenson. And there's an interesting bit of lore surrounding the origin of these little coastal islands here. According to local legend, Muckle and its neighbor Little Flugga, which is not even modeled in here, were formed when two giants named Herman and Saxa had a little spat over a mermaid for whom they both shared a fondness. Things escalated to verbal assaults and then to rock hurling, which is the reported source of those islands. And unimpressed with their childish feud, the mermaid said that she would marry whichever one would swim to the North Pole with her. And unfortunately for the giants, they both drowned. Which I guess was very fortunate for the mermaid. But at least we got some cool islands and a lighthouse out of the whole ordeal, right? Alright, so here's some of the bad cliffs here, and they're going to pop into a little bit better clarity, but most of the steep cliffs around here are going to look kind of like that. Fortunately, there aren't a whole lot of them. You can see up here, most of them are a little bit more shallow than that. Okay, we're at 3,000, so let's go ahead and kick it back to range, and listen, you can hear it kind of tone down a little bit. And again, it's not really going to change the airspeed. We'll keep an eye on that. Okay, so it was maxing out. It's come down a little bit, which is fine. Okay, we got about a 19 knot wind coming from 152 right now, so that's going to slow us down a little bit. It's saying our ground speed is 263, which is about right because it's not a direct headwind. See, this doesn't look too bad down here. Not too bad at all. That little lake right down there, this long one there, is called the Loch of Cliff. And unlike most of the other Scottish lochs, that one is not very deep at all, only getting to around 20 feet at the deepest spot. But apparently it's a really great spot for anglers looking for Shetland-sized brown trout, which are pretty hefty based on some of the fishing blogs that I found. Alright, as I was looking around for historic sites up here, I was blown away by how many old church ruins there are. For such a small population, they seem to be all over the place. And one of them that bears mentioning is one that we're going to see up here in a minute called St. Olaf's Church. This is it right here, that little black speck. We're going to get a much better look at it. Well, as good as we can from 3,000 feet. It was built in the 1100s and remained in use all the way up until 1785, and its graveyard is still being used today. Of course, by used, I mean they're still burying people in it. And look at this, they got a lot of sandy beaches and stuff out here, just really crazy. And you'll notice there's kind of a green tint to everything. Okay, we may get our first hard freeze as we come around here. See, that looks great. Right there, not too bad at all. And then right on the other side of it, we get a little bit of that. And as you get closer, I mean, if it can look good, that's, again, I just don't understand it. Come on, 2024. I know you got that covered. If you can make it look good, why not make it look good before we're right on top of it? But if you look at a high-res satellite map like Google, you're going to see the Shetlands are covered with all kinds of residential ruins too. So I had to research that a bit because I was getting the sense there may once have been way more people living up here than there are today, and it looks like that might be accurate, but I'll tell you more about that in a bit. One of just a handful of castles too, in fact, that we're going to see on this trip is Muness, which is, or maybe Muness, which is going to be very difficult to pick out because it's rather small and tucked in between some other structures up here on our left. It was built in 1598 and is the northernmost of the larger fortifications in Shetland. And unfortunately was burned out by privateers just 30 years after they built it, and they never repaired it. And I'm going to include a link in this video description of a beautiful drone flight over this place so you can get a better look at it if you like. I think that's it right there. I'm pretty sure that's it. It's very small. It's about the size of a large house, and it's in rough shape. And from that drone flight video, it looks like it's 2 stories today, but I read it was originally 3 stories, but they pulled the top one down to make a little wall around the bottom of it, which seems awfully strange for a place that nobody intended to repair, but whatever. Alright, we're going to circle over the island of Fetlar here, which was actually featured on an episode of Time Team, a show that, in my humble opinion, may be the greatest production of all time. I know all you Brits will appreciate that. And they were up here looking for a Viking ship burial. That's what the Time Team guys were doing, and I won't spoil it by telling you if they found it or not. You can go watch it for yourself and thank me later for introducing you to Time Team. But one very interesting feature of this island is a huge rock wall that splits it down the middle from north to south. In fact, let's hop in the back to see if we can see that. And they think the thing may be as much as 4,000 years old or older. And they're not really sure why they built it either. They think it might have something to do with land feuds from the very, very early inhabitants, even before the Vikings. Alright, so there's the tiny little airport they have out here. I really couldn't get much information on that. And I think the wall would kind of run somewhere through here. It's got huge rocks. It's not like the kind of rock walls you'd see like in New England, where it's like boulders you could pick up. They are huge. That might be it right there. If that's not just a field marker, an old field marker, that's about what it looked like on the satellite map, but I feel like it was a little bit further over this way. There's a little landing strip, and it is very little. God, is your blood pressure going down? It's just amazing. I don't know why I feel so good flying out here. Just beautiful. Oh, if only they could get those cliffs fixed. That's all right. Incredible. All right, let's get back up front. Enough of that for now. Yeah, so that runway's just got an airport. The runway's just 1,500 feet long, so that's pretty short. And you better have a good headwind, which I'm sure you won't have trouble finding up here. All right, we're about to cross over the southern end of the island of Yell, the third most populated in Shetland, and I bet they don't pronounce that Yell. It's probably like Yell, something like that. Nothing is like you would think, the way they pronounce it with that local dialect. But on this whole island, they have 966 residents as of the last time anyone bothered to check, and that's it right in front of us there. And they do have a decent-sized little town for this area anyway called Burrovo. Down here on the southern end, we're going to fly past it. It's right over here. And the name means Broch Bay, which comes from the ancient Broch down along the waterline. They got one right down here. And if you saw our northern Scotland flight where we flew up by Inverness and then headed south, I was telling you about those Brochs. They got a lot of them out here. And those things are those ancient stone towers that look a lot like cooling towers from a power plant. There's currently 571 of them that have been identified in Scotland, including this area. And they believe the first one of those was probably built around the turn of the first millennium. This one here is not huge. There's a few down by where we're landing that are phenomenal, really large, but they're tough to see here in the sim. Just look at how much open space is out here. And what's really interesting about this landscape, it looks like it was probably scoured down by glaciers. During the Pleistocene glaciers, which is the last ice age, this was totally under probably miles of ice. So I think it probably kind of sanded everything down, but there are a lot of long ridge lines running through like this, and those are fault lines, the same fault lines probably that run through the Highlands of Scotland. We're going to see a few of those on this trip, just kind of crisscrossing over it. But the reason why there's so many ancient structures still up here is you probably noticed there's no trees anywhere. So they made everything out of stone. So once it was up, it was there forever, unless someone robbed it out to build something else. Okay, this next landmark may be my favorite on this trip because it looks really cool. It's called the Sullom Oil Terminal, and it's massive. And the story behind it's pretty interesting, too. When they first started drilling oil in the North Sea in the 1970s, all the major players were thinking they'd be able to pipe it over here to the Shetlands and have their own terminals, but not wanting to have a bunch of huge oil facilities all over their beautiful landscape, but still wanting the economic boost, naturally. The locals were able to consolidate all the pipelines into this one terminal, which officially opened in 1981, although they'd already been pumping oil through there for a couple years. And at night, or if it's a little bit darker, you can see they got some flames burning off the gas from the top of these things here, which looks pretty cool. But this is nice. They got a couple tankers in there. Just perfect. And last time I was out here, there were some ships scooting around, but I'm not seeing any now. I do have the shipping traffic turned on. But we got the tankers. They've also got a power station down here that provides almost half the power for Shetland, but I couldn't figure out exactly where that is. I was looking really hard on the satellite map, not that it would be modeled accurately anyway, but all this stuff had pipes running all around it, so I'm guessing that's part of the oil processing area. I don't know where the power station is. Maybe something over here. And down here is Skasta Airport, which actually has a decent runway at about 4,500 feet. They built that as RAF Skasta in 1940 and used it extensively for coastal patrol support during World War II. And then it got mothballed after the war and opened again when they started flying people in to work on the oil terminal. And today it sounds like they use it as a base for a lot of the helicopters flying to the oil platforms off the coast. And just to showcase my ignorance, as I often like to do, I thought big oil terminals like this, I thought the ships would go out to the rigs, like offload the oil into the ships. I don't know why I was thinking that, because I've never seen a ship actually doing that. But they've got huge pipelines running from all the rigs back to this place, and then it sounds like they put it on the ships. Like hundreds of miles of pipelines, which is pretty cool. I didn't realize that's how they were doing that. All right, we got about 20 miles to our next point of interest, so we'll revisit some history while we soak in the views out here. I think the very first people to live out here made their way north from the Scottish mainland around 6,000 years ago. I was looking at a couple different sites that had a little bit of conflicting info. But the sources I did find didn't seem certain about that. It's possible they may have come west from Norway, but the oldest sites they found out here are on the southernmost tip of the Shetlands, which makes people think they probably came up from the south. And it wasn't just a handful of people either. They found over 5,000 prehistoric sites on these islands, not the least of which are the Brooks I mentioned earlier, which again started going up around the first millennium. The Viking colonization started in the latter part of the 8th century. Before that, the Vikings much preferred to send over raiding parties and then head home with all their loot. But as the population was growing in Scandinavia and the good farmland was all scooped up, they decided to come out here and stay. In a delightful little twist of irony, the Vikings started using these islands as a base to loot coastal Norway. So they're going back and looting their homeland, which is what prompted the good King Mr. Fairhair to just come over here and annex the place. And then Christianity took hold in the 900s, but not without a little encouragement. While visiting the Orkney Islands to the south, King Olaf Tryggvason told one of the local jarls, and I'm quoting here, "I order you and all your subjects to be baptized. If you refuse, I'll have you killed on the spot, and I swear I will ravage every island with fire and steel." And that seemed to do the trick. The islands remained under Norwegian control up through the 1400s, but they were officially handed over to Scotland in 1472 after what sounded like a royal dowry that was never settled. And these islands were used as the collateral for that. So when they didn't pay up, they got the islands. And that's not the first time we've heard about people losing property up here over sloppy dealings. You might recall that huge castle we saw on that northern Scotland flight just north of where we were coming into. That one was lost, I think, between some of the clans after a drunken bet gone bad. But that's how they do it up here. Love it. Today, the main economic drivers are fishing, farming, and, of no surprise, the petroleum industry. And they've recently built a spaceport up by that radar station we saw near our departure location, but we really couldn't see anything in the sim. And it sounds like they got plans to start launching satellites up there. I guess a German company is going to launch hydrogen rockets and send satellites up on them. But I'll show you where that should be because some of the maps show what they're building up there. And I think they have already launched a space balloon, whatever that is. And as far as the climate goes, well, it's windy, and it seems to be that way pretty much all the time. And it rains quite a bit too, but not torrentially. They get about 50 inches of rainfall annually, but it comes down about 204 days a year on average. And despite being so far north, it doesn't really get below freezing very often. They got that maritime climate. And I can only imagine how delightful it is up here during the summer months, considering it rarely gets above 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And they don't have nighttime here in the summer. It just kind of has twilight, but during the winter, they only get about 6 hours of daylight, which would not be awesome. Okay, coming up right over here is going to be the bustling city of Scalawa, which does have its very own castle, though it's not very substantial. Today it's just a little fishing village with around 100 residents, but it used to be the capital of Shetland, hence the castle, which is also called Scalawa. But they built that thing in 1600, and we will be able to see that one up here. That's one of the add-ons from the ORBX pack, I think. And it used to be completely surrounded by water, the castle did, but now it's back behind a big port. They did a little land reclamation. So here's the port, and the castle's going to be somewhere around there. It might be that dark spot right there. We're going to come right by it. But the castle's not open to the public. But if you are staying at the local hotel or visiting the museum, it's like going to the gas station in the middle of nowhere and trying to use the bathroom. They'll give you a little key. You can walk over there and check it out, which is, in fact, beyond awesome. All right, so that right there is the castle. And they got a little open pit mine that looks pretty good in here. Shorelines look pretty good. No, that's the castle right there. I don't know if I mean, it's as good as it's going to get. I guess if we got really... But this is nice. I mean, look how detailed that is. That is very detailed. They got the ships down there and everything. So I don't know which add-on put all those in, and maybe it's just part of the sim, but that looks really good. There's a little castle right there. And we get a little bit of this kind of terrain tiling going on here. Not too bad. I tried using some of the map enhancements. Did not look good at all with any of them, so don't bother with that. It looked really rough, so what you get in the sim is far better than anything else I tried.
2,500.
There we go. That's what I was waiting for. This next town is Lerwick, the biggest in Shetland and now the capital, with around 7,000 residents, which is a veritable metropolis compared to everything else out here. And we're going to see if we can spot a very well-preserved brook on a little peninsula sticking out in Clickaman Loch, which is this right here. That's where it is, but it looks like it's probably flat. And that used to be an island with a little stone causeway out there, but now it's on that peninsula. Yep, you can't really see it. And they do have a fort out here, the only proper fort on this trip, but it's kind of buried in downtown now. It used to also be right along the water line. You can just see a little bit of the outline of it there. It's called Fort Charlotte. We'll take a look at that on the satellite map when we're done. But the first of those fortifications went up in 1653 during the First Anglo-Dutch War. And all we know about it is from written records because they never found any evidence of it, but they're pretty sure something was down there. That current one was built in 1781 and named after then Queen Charlotte. Okay, we're coming up on our home stretch here, believe it or not. This is the island of Bressa down here to our right. And by the way, that last island we flew over is called Mainland, which is just perfect, and it's biggest by far of all the islands. And the one landmark we're going to have out here on Bressa is a lighthouse. Also built by the Stevenson brothers, and they put this one up in 1858. And today you can rent out the 2 assistant keepers' cottages for vacation. And if you don't mind waiting until it opens up, you can rent the main cottage for as long as you want. I tried to find out how much it would cost. Let's hop in the back real quick, see if we can see this lighthouse. It's kind of up around the western side of it. I think once we come around somewhere, we'll see it. But I found a bunch of VBRO places up here in Shetlands, but I couldn't find that place, so maybe you got to know someone to stay down here. And they used to have a huge foghorn down here, which unfortunately they dismantled in the 90s. They said it was gigantic, but they left the big 5 air tanks that powered that thing. Yeah, it's on the other side of that cliff. We'll see it as we come around here. So this plane was $20, and I think it's probably worth it because it's a very unique plane. You can see the detailing is not superb back here, but most people aren't sitting back here doing what we're doing. All right, we're going to see... There it is. There's the lighthouse right there. Oh, wait a minute. That might be it over there. I think that's it over there. I just couldn't get this thing to turn tight enough and stay on our course to get a better look at it. Yep, that's it over there. But I think it's worth $20. Everything up here looks really, really good, and you can even see when the sun's hitting it right. Some people don't like when you can see like the swipe marks and stuff on the screen, but it has all that, which I always enjoy. You can even see the streaks there. Someone left a little Windex on it. But I like this plane. I like it. And you get the electronic flight bag and all that, so pretty cool. Let's check our barrel again. Okay, a couple of quick announcements real quick while we head to the next spot. Our upcoming group flight is going to be over the Virgin Islands. We don't have a date for that yet, but if you'd like to participate in that with us, just hop on our Discord server. The link for that will also be in the video description. And we'll just hop on the group chat, and away we'll go. We're probably going to take a faster seaplane, maybe like the Goose or the Twin Otter if you have it. Or maybe the Kodiak. But that's what the plan is for that one. And then we have our quarterly flight plan competition going on right now. Also, go into Discord, check out the Suggest a Flight section. All I need is the departure airport code, arrival airport code, and some spots to check out in between. Look at that coastline. That's amazing. And not so amazing right there. It's so hit or miss. So if you want to do that, the winner, we will vote as a sim community at the end of the quarter, and the winner gets a $50 gift card to the sim vendor of their choice, as long as they offer gift cards. And I think we have 3 or 4 flights already submitted for this quarter. This looks amazing right here. Just great. And then you get this kind of stuff down here. Not a big deal. It doesn't get much brighter than this. I mean, this is August, so it might get a little bit brighter, but the sun just doesn't get too high in the sky way up here. And if you haven't seen it yet, I have, or haven't heard about it yet, I have decided I am no longer going to fly the helicopters with the assists on. I am training myself to do it without them, and last week I uploaded a tutorial, not really a tutorial, well, kind of.
2,500.
Oh my gosh, that always scares the crap out of me. Of my transition, just kind of showing you what I'm doing, what I'm working on, and I am getting much, much better doing these exercises that I put in that video. So if you're thinking about either getting into the helicopters for the first time, I would encourage you, if you're ever going to do it, don't do it with the...
2,500.
Once we get over this, it'll stop doing that. Don't do it with the assist on. It made some muscle memory problems that I'm trying really, really hard to break. This thing here is called St. Ninian's Isle right here. And half the year it's an island, and the other half of the year during the summertime it looks like this with this little sandbar connecting it. Something about the wave action during the winter wipes all the sand away and then rebuilds it again in the summertime, which is pretty interesting. And right down here there's St. Ninian's Chapel, and there's an interesting little story about that. It was also built in the 1100s, I think. But there's a story about some treasure in there. Let me just get down real quick. I gotta start coming way down, so I'm gonna go ahead and just cut the autopilot off, start coming down. They were doing some archaeological excavations at that place in, I think, the 1980s. Or 1958, sorry, that's when it was. I'm trying too much to concentrate on too many different things. And they found a stone piece on the floor with a cross on it. And when they pulled it up, they found a hoard of silver underneath it in a little wooden box. And they think it was probably from the 700s or 800s, and it looked like it was new when it went in there, so they were thinking it was probably underneath an older church that was originally out here. But they had about 28 pieces, and it was like some bowls and bracelets and brooches and things like that. But how cool would it be to be like, hey, there's a cross on that stone tile on the floor. Let's pull it up and see what's underneath that. And sure enough, there's treasure under it. It's like the plot of an Indiana Jones movie. That would be amazing. All right, I'd love to tell you about this airport, but now that I've turned the autopilot off, I need to concentrate on this. I've got the throttle cut right now, and when you cut the throttle, it'll actually charge the engines. Or charge the batteries.
2,500.
Sorry, guys. I would turn that down, but then we'd hear just absolute silence, which I couldn't handle while we're flying around. And I've read that I don't think they've put these in production yet. They've already taken a bunch of orders, probably over 200 orders, and they're going to cost about $4 million each. There's a place up in New Hampshire that's ordered some, and then some from other countries have picked them up. But, I mean, I just don't know. I guess we'll see how practical that is. I don't know if I'd plop down a couple $1 million, several $1 million for each of these without seeing how effective they are. All right, let's get the gears out and the flaps out. I should have done this sooner, but that's okay. We had a lot to see and talk about. And I don't know what I think our approach speed is 100 knots. We're going to see it's going to come up here. I'm going way too fast, so we'll just come down and flare for a bit.
1,000.
But I don't know what our ref speed is because it's not on the bug. So once we get down, we'll check out a little NavMap.
500.
And this is Sombra Airport, which is the main one for the area. And they built this in 1936, and this was one of the first that got... I can't even try to talk over that guy. I'll tell you once we get on the ground. He's just screaming in my ear.
200.
Yep, I hear you. Thank you. This looks a
100.
lot better with that add-on.
50. 40. 30.
All right.
20.
We do have a crosswind here.
10.
And we made it. This was one of the first places to get radar or radio direction finding equipment out here because of all the fog and low clouds. So I thought that was kind of interesting and worth mentioning. This airport does look way better with that add-on. That was nice. I think it does. I'm trying to remember what it looked like before, but I came down to some of the other little ones before when I was in a smaller plane. They all look much better now. All right, so let's see where we can park this, and then we'll check out a little NavMap real quick because there's a few interesting things I want to show you. Oh my gosh, please tell me there's something written on top of that building. It looks like it, doesn't it? We'll see. We'll go over there. I feel like there's a lot of stuff added out here. And we didn't get that hard freeze either. Well, wonderful. Yeah, look at all this stuff on the ground. I don't know. That may be an in-sim touch-up because he put a lot of effort into this if it's all from that freeware, which would be incredible. Are those words up there? I don't know. They might be solar panels or something. Okay, well, we'll just pull over here. I don't see anyone here to park us. Let's see. That looks pretty good over there. And we're getting a little bit of stuttering. Look at all the rust on that thing up there. This looks amazing. This might be an in-sim mod, and if not, kudos to the guy that made that. I don't think this is a parking spot, but we're going to park here anyway. Let me show you real quick the front profile of this thing because it looks really cool. All right, let me just shut it down real quick. Parking brake on. We already got our flaps up, and we'll just let the battery keep running. Okay, I think we're probably okay. Now let's get out. Show you the front view of this bad boy. Yeah, we're getting some stuttering now. We're getting some performance hit from this airport. Look at the front of that. Look how it's kind of flat underneath. How cool is that? Very slick looking plane. I can't wait to see if this takes off. It just does not seem practical to me. We were talking about it on the Discord. I don't know how they would do that. And when you can put a little charging station next to it. It looks like a little Tesla charging station, and you can go out there and select charge and all that stuff. It's pretty cool. But they show you all that stuff in all the reviews. Okay, so let's just kind of leave that there for now. Pull over a little NavMap and check her out. You can hear the waves and everything. Gosh, this is just amazing. Such an incredible place to fly. So here we were way, way up here. And there's where we left from. Unst is how you pronounce that, I believe. Came around this way, and here is where they're building the spaceport. Saxavord Spaceport, and if you look on the Google map, they've built up quite a bit out here now. I don't know how old this map is, but obviously older than the Google map. I couldn't really find any launch pads or anything yet, but I didn't take a super close look, and as you just skim around on here, especially on the Google map, which has better resolution, it just ruins everywhere, all over the place out here. It's amazing. There's some more there. I mean, when they built this stuff, it just, unless they pulled it down to make something else, it's just still sitting there. Okay, so, here's the radar station. which looked just like that. Very cool. And I don't know if you remember what it looked like in the sim, but it looked kind of like they put just one of these in, and that probably wasn't even accurate what they did put in, but you could tell the rocks were very well modeled. And I think this is called Outer Cut. This is the highest or northernmost point in all the UK right here, that little island. And in the sim, the lighthouse was somewhere over here on whatever rocks they put it on, but that's Muckle Flugga Lighthouse there. And then here's the Lock of Cliff, where you can catch your brown trout up here, huge ones. And then here's St. Olaf's Church. That's it, just out in the middle of nowhere. You can see there's no modern houses. Well, there's one. But even that might be ruins. It looks like it. Yeah, there's no top on the thing. How fun would it be just to come out here and explore that? You better have a lot of time on it. Look at nothing has tops on it. These are all just ruins. And then there's here's a brook out here. That one's not real big. You can tell the bigger ones because they have a big shadow coming off of them. But that one's pretty small. I'll show you some really nice ones down by the airport. Okay, and then here's Muness Castle. Also without a roof. And then there's when it had a third story, they pulled it down and made that wall around it there. And check out that drone video. I also put another drone video for Muckle Flugga Lighthouse. Just beautiful. Both of them are about 2 minutes long, so it's well worth watching if you like that kind of thing. And then here is the Fetlar Airport, and the rock wall that cuts the island in half, I'm pretty sure is this thing right here. So that might have been it. That looked about like what it probably was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. Just split the thing in half. Nobody's really sure why. But that's probably all kinds of fighting and stuff going on. Okay, here's Buravoe out here. And then here's their brook. Oh, this map is just not as good as the Google one. And they got a little museum here, which is the oldest house in Shetland is out here. They've turned into a little museum. It's called the Tea House, I think. And what is that? I can't even tell what that says. Oh, that was supposed to be up here, so the bookmark got in the wrong place, so disregard that one. The bookmark file, by the way, will also be included in the video description. And here's Sullumvoe, which actually looked way better in the sim because these things are all warped. And initially I was like, what are all those rings on top of it? But they really do have those rings on them. Probably just from water settling or something. Doesn't look good in the satellite map. Maybe this is the power plant, unless they're just processing, because it said it is a gas turbine plant. So maybe that's the power plant, unless they're just processing natural gas there. Because you can see this here has all the pipes running through it, so I don't think that's it. They're probably moving oil through there. And then here's the big airport. Almost 4,500 feet. Pretty good sized. And I wonder how far, if we were taking a helicopter from there, I don't have any of the oil rig add-ons. I wonder where they are from here. It said most of the pipelines were about 100 miles, which would be a real hike in a helicopter. Alright, then we came down here and talked about the history and came down to Scalawa. And apparently that's how you say it, not Scalaway, Scalawa. And there's the little castle there, which used to be surrounded by water. So if you need to come in, come to the museum or the hotel. I'm not sure where the hotel is, but you got a key at the museum and the hotel. And you can get in there, which would be really cool. That looked great in the sim, actually. That whole area looked really, really good. And then here's Lyric up here. And now you can see the brook. That's a pretty nice looking one there. And this is the one that used to be on an island with a little stone causeway. And I'm guessing that's probably always been kind of landlocked like that because this isn't fill dirt here. They didn't fill all this back in with reclamation, so I'm guessing they probably just piled a little dirt up here so people could get to it. And then here's Fort Charlotte, which again is just really hard to pick out from all the ground clutter out there. But this used to be right along the water too, I think. I read that they built up a lot of this stuff here, which does look pretty new. But that's also tough to see now unless you're looking right down on top of it. And then here is Bressa, which is not Bresse, it's Bressa. And then here's the lighthouse that used to have the huge foghorn. And just check out some pictures of that. It looks absolutely beautiful. It would be an awesome place to stay. Not much else to do on the island of Bressa, though, it doesn't look like. But you are close to the capital. And I bookmarked this here just because I thought it was kind of interesting. It's an old Viking quarry. You can kind of see that in the sim. Not real defined, but it was interesting and old, so I put one on there. And then here's St. Ninians. And there's the... It said this thing's called a tombolo. Or a tombolo, maybe? I've never heard of that before, but there was a description of it on Wikipedia. So apparently they're kind of common, but it washes away in the wintertime. And you kind of see all the sand that got washed out there. And I don't know how it gets built back up again or why in the spring for the summertime, but that's interesting. I've never heard of that. And this is where they found the silver treasure hoard underneath the floor of that place, which is incredible. And as we came around this way to our approach, they were way too close to the airport to see them, but check out some of these archaeological sites here. They got some more baroque stuff there. And then this one here is particularly interesting because of this thing. There was nothing in Google about that, so I don't know what it is, but it appears to be pretty old. Unless it's just a big S for Sombra. Maybe, I don't know. But you can tell they got a roundhouse structure of some kind there. All kinds of stuff here. Again, on the Google map, it's even better looking than this if you like looking at things like that. Jarlshof. I need to go back and see what that town of Twat's all about. And then here's the Sombra headlight, which we didn't come down far enough to see that. We've even got a marker for the foghorn. I wonder if that thing's still working. So that's it. That's the Shetlands, guys. I am still trying to find some cool places that look way better with the map enhancement. While I still have it, I probably still have a couple weeks for that 1-month subscription that I had. So if I can find anything, I'll let you know. And I'm almost feeling confident enough now to do a non-assist helicopter flight. So we'll see. I'm probably going to upload another one of my exercises tutorials if you want to do that. And man, if you guys aren't flying the helicopters, or even if you are, go in there and try to do some of those exercises. The first ones are really, really basic if you're already flying them well without the assist on. If you're not, and you're wanting to start getting better at flying the helicopters, I'm telling you, just do it. Do it one time, and all of a sudden you'll be like, wow, I can fly these things. It's actually possible. Just let me know. A lot of people have been like, this is amazing. This is exactly what I needed. Not that I'm an expert or an instructor by any stretch of the imagination, but it's working for me. So check it out. That was it, guys. Awesome flight. Very relaxing and very, very quiet. And I had an absolute blast. Can't wait to see you on the skies. Later.